When was the first time you remember receiving a loving touch or lovingly touching another? Being deeply held in someone's arms. When you were first tenderly kissed or caressed yourself, or entwined with a lover, skin to skin, or slow danced somewhere, cheek to cheek. When you first put a kindred arm around the waist or shoulder of a friend, or had theirs gladly around yours. When was the first time? And when? When was the last? The last gentle touching, the last beautiful touch. Welcome to the latest floating poetry broadcast. Thank you for leaning in from wherever you're pausing to be here, to be at ease and quietly listen. It's a joy to have you here for show 164, coming to you live from the wave-kissed coast of Rhode Island. This is your poet and poetorialist, Colin Goedecke, a voice for living our days more fully, more alively, more poetically. Last week's theme, to praise, is the thing. And the virtue and value of praising what's greatly good inside and around us, the beautiful natures of others in our lives, the simple gifts of the earth, the best parts of our humanity and human creativity, and more. To make praising a daily practice, a form of acknowledgement, affirmation, appreciation, and reverence. An energetic that has visible and invisible ripple effects of all welcome kinds. This week, on touching and being touched, how beautiful it is to give and receive touch, lovingly, kindly, caringly, freely, and spontaneously. How elemental it is to our being human, how it contributes physiologically, emotionally, and otherwise to our wellness, our happiness, to our feelings of being appreciated, our expressiveness, and to our aliveness, not least our tenderness, sensuousness, natural sensuality, something so meaningful and desirable, and yet at the same time, especially and largely in Western culture, so noticeably lacking. Surprising, and I would say saddening to me, maybe you too, how many people go without being touched much or at all, who are starving for nourishing human touch. People of all kinds, especially our older generations, even people right around your immediate world. Well, may we change this equation in all desired ways, one person at a time. You can play a part there. So I've fashioned an offering of cultural commentary, poetry, and shared inquiry for us to touch into around this theme, and I hope enters your senses, your spirit, thoughts, feelings in good ways. From the countryside of New Jersey, August 2017. Feel the earth. Slow down, all the way down. Feel the earth, the sentient earth. See and touch it. Hear it, taste it. Where you are, wherever you are, let it hold you. Let it feel you. Let it breathe you. Let it fill you. Well, back in time, for some of you who were alive way back in time, in amusement parks, certainly in America, there was often a tunnel of love that you could float through as a pair, as a couple. So I remember reading an article about the old amusement parks and that led me to a poem a few years back, 5 years back, 6 years back. The tunnel of love. You enter, eager, with a frisson of wonder. Float into it side by side, two fresh-faced lovers, fellow travelers, on an enchanting, sometimes jumpy passage that either way draws you close together for comfort, kissing, tender touching, a ride, a journey that may last a long time, even a lifetime, or barely a heartbeat, sharing seats in a cozy boat. Either way, when you exit, you often emerge feeling lighter and lovelier. The tunnel of love. Here's a James Wright poem, A Blessing. Just off the highway to Rochester, Minnesota, twilight bound softly forth on the grass, and the eyes of those two Indian ponies darken with kindness. They have come gladly out of the willows to welcome my friend and me. We step over the barbed wire into the pasture, where they have been grazing all day alone. They ripple tensely. They can hardly contain their happiness that we have come. They bow shyly as wet swans. They love each other. There is no loneliness like theirs. At home once more, they begin munching the young tufts of spring in the darkness. I would like to hold the slenderer one in my arms, for she has walked over to me and nuzzled my left hand. She is black and white, her mane falls wild on her forehead, and the light breeze moves me to caress her long ear that is delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. Suddenly I realize that if I stepped out of my body, I would break into blossom. A blessing. Thank you, James Wright. It was beautiful. It was new to me, maybe to you, from his collection Above the River. This is from cuddletherapy.uk. Why we need touch. Communication is the key to any relationship, and touch is a form of communicating. When we touch someone, you can often feel their emotions and energy, whether positive or negative. These can include fear, love, gratitude, sympathy, happiness, sadness, compassion, sensitivity, and embarrassment, to name but a few. It is important that these kind of emotions may be expressed through touch, to literally be held. Does this sound like you? I lost my wife or husband, girlfriend, boyfriend. Since then, simple physical affection hasn't been in my life. I feel lonely and I miss just being held, but I don't want to lead anyone on or put myself in an immoral situation. Or, I'm a touch-oriented person and I'm hurting because I'm not getting enough affectionate platonic touch, but I don't think I can ask for it from the people around me. I don't want to be awkward or give anyone the wrong idea. Or, I've endured a traumatic experience that makes it difficult to allow others to be physically close to me. I want to start finding my way back in a safe place where I won't be judged or have expectations placed on me. Or, I have a condition or disability that sometimes makes it hard to get close to others, but I need to be hugged just as much as anyone else. Or, I'm stressed out. I need to escape. I just went through something hard. I feel depressed. I need a shoulder to cry on. I know I can talk to a therapist, but right now, more than anything, I need a hug. A common misconception in our culture among those who are not touch-oriented is that after a certain age, being physically close to someone for long enough can only lead to sexual things. This is a symptom of an over-sexualized culture. It is untrue and can be very damaging. It's exactly the same concept. In some regions of the world, reassuring touch of more than 1 or 2 seconds is considered taboo in all but the most intimate relationships. This must change. In our culture, touch-oriented people who express their unmet need for non-intimate, non-romantic physical contact are often misunderstood to be looking for, quote, something more, and might be ignored or even ridiculed, even if the recipient of their cry for help secretly understands. So the touch-starved person learns not to ask. Instead, they suffer in silence, maybe for the rest of their lives. It shouldn't be this way. Well, I couldn't agree more. I hope you agree as well. Wikipedia on physical intimacy, another form of language that we all have. It's sensual proximity or touching. It's an act or reaction such as the expression of feelings, including close friendship, platonic love, romantic love, or sexual attraction between people. It can often convey the real meaning or intention of an interaction in a way that accompanying speech cannot do. It has emotional and social connotations that often far outweigh anything that can be expressed via language. The role of touch in interpersonal relationships across development and in different cultures is understudied. However, some observational data suggest that in cultures who engage in more physical intimacy have lower rates of violence demonstrated in adolescents and children. And then this last piece, the term skinship, skinshipu, originated as a pseudo-English Japanese word, wasai aigo, which was coined to describe the intimacy or closeness between a mother and a child. Today, the word is generally used for bonding through physical contact, such as holding hands, hugging, or parents washing their child at a bath. Well, back in 2004, New York City, when I lived there, which was for several decades, there was an unexpected experience that I had. And one day, when a good friend and neighbor came to visit, and I opened the front door to receive her, as usual, and exchange an embrace, as usual. But this time, it was altogether deeper. It was suddenly transporting, and it inspired this poem that day. The Clasp. When two bodies meet and melt into one form like lost wax, chest presses to breasts, loins join to loins, layers of feeling pour forth, are captured by desire and chased by whole heart beatings until pulled from this mold, leaving behind a cast of feelings both faithful and original. It was very beautiful. The clasp wasn't really sexual. It was just this fullness of meeting somebody beyond the usual. You know, on a very lighthearted side, sometimes when I see a dear woman friend, I open my arms and say, "Crush me to your breast." And I just, there's something beautiful and fun and lovely about that to me. Yeah, breast to breast in that heart-to-heart way. Well, many questions for you this week, and around this theme about touching and being touched. When was a recent time you were beautifully touched, or joyfully touched, or erotically, or playfully? Or you affectionately touched another? And what moved you to do that? And what do you love most about touching? And what about being touched? How does it feel in your body and in your being to be positively touched? To exchange a friendly handshake? To have an arm around your shoulder? To receive a kiss on the cheek, on the lips, on some other part of your body? To be embraced and folded, or be held, or cuddled, grazed, caressed? What about giving your touch to an animal? Maybe a beloved, a pet, stroking their head or fur, or brushing the petals of a flower, which is why I chose that image. It was something tender and lovely and very intimate in a way about that image for this show. Or touching the leaves or bark of a tree, or meeting purely, innocently through touch other living things in nature around you. Is there enough touch in your life, in your days right now? Are you hungry for touch? Well, if you were here, I would give you a hug. As one of my listeners, I would be happy to do that. I'm a good hugger, I've been told. Well, what wonderful or lasting touch memories do you have? How old were you? Where were you? What was the experience? And what was the nature of touch in your childhood, in your family, growing up, especially with your parents? Have you followed their lead or gone another way? In my own growing up, my father and all the relatives on my father's side were very physically affectionate, and on my mother's side, much more restrained. And when I got married into a family of full-tilt Italians, it was a love fest of all kinds, of heartful kinds, hugging and kissing, constantly familial touching, just wonderful. It inspired me in a big and welcome way to be far more expressive and receptive to physical intimacy of all kinds, and also far more comfortable just in my body. And tell me, what experiences have you had of healing touch, healing hands, massage, other bodywork therapies? And what about dancing? All the delightful touching that comes when you're dancing, and that sensuality of slow dancing with someone, sometimes dreamily, cheek to cheek, as I spoke of in the opening piece. Well, yeah, I find that beyond dreamy. Love slow dancing. All dancing, but slow especially. And what about enjoying your own touch? Giving your body the pleasure of touch, maybe a gentle self-massage, maybe stroking your whole body on waking as part of your waking, of entering the day. And for some, of course, the joy and bliss of touch in lovemaking, of being erotically and passionately, or just very quietly and closely, skin to skin. In these times of ours when so many are farther and farther removed from their bodies, and others' bodies are more and more disembodied and involved in more things virtual and unsensate, I felt I ought to make a broadcast that helps call us back to the essentialness and wonderfulness of touch in its best form. That calls us to be good and frequent and affectionate touchers and touchies, embracers, kissers, caressers, holders, expressors, nourishers. What say you, dear listeners? What say you? All right. Came across a poem by a poet I did not know, Franny Choi, C-H-O-I. Well, she has a longer poem. I'm going to read you one piece of it. It's Perihelion, a history of touch. She goes through 12 different moons, from the wolf moon to the snow and worm moon, flower, strawberry, and sturgeon moon. These are all native names for different moons, if you don't know that. Well, here I'll give you just the harvest moon. Let's see if I can find that easily. Here it is. Last winter, when we finally kissed under fluorescent lights, that was the seed we pressed between the ground's lips. Then I laughed when the sky collapsed into pathetic rivers. Then I drank the dirt through my hooves and liked it. Then I ate all the sun I could find. Though the weeds claw sugar-starved at my thighs, though the sky casts over cataract, callous, and the earth fumes as iron claws uproot the children's children we keep warm in our bellies. Still, when the moon and the horses are fat on the horizon, still you'll find me, arms heavy with eggplant, charred tomatoes, bruised blue, blushing kohlrabi till the kohlrabi's gone. Will you pluck me before the dust does, root and all, radicchio tendon? I promise I'll feed no upright animal. Only the bees and the bees, beans sitting on the squash's face. Will you turn your palms to the sky? Will you turn your palms to the prayer hunger makes? Will you feed and lick the bowl clean when we're both full? Thank you, Franny Choi. The noted French poet Charles Baudelaire has this poem, Tristesse de la Lune, sadness of the moon. Tonight the moon is full of laziness. like a beauty reclining on many cushions before going to sleep, with light and distracted touch caressing the contours of her breasts. Upon the satin backs of soft avalanches she abandons herself to the touch of her own hands, and faintly looks down upon pale white visions that climb into space like tropical vines. From time to time, in her lonely delirium, she lets a quick tear shoot across the sky, and a pious poet, awake all through the night, takes this pale tear like a fragment of opal into the palm of his hand and places it within his heart, far from the eyes of the sun. Sadness of the moon, tristesse de la lune. Merci, Monsieur Baudelaire. We can use touch to feel the deep sensuality of nature, not just animals, but not just fauna and flora. This is from the Yucatan Peninsula at the edge of the sea, years and years back, 1998, opening the inside. I soothe 2 fingers into your shell, scented with sea, touching inside that secret smooth place like warm, worn marble, the shell that holds your mystery inside, now yielding itself up to my discovering fingers. Opening the inside. Well, more on cultural nuances and touch and diversity of it. This is expression of affection through touch across cultures from spsp.org. If there are differences between cultures, why do these exist? We asked over 14,000 adults from 45 countries whether they embraced, stroked, kissed, or hugged their partner, friends, and youngest child, if they had children, during the preceding week. We found that all over the world, embracing, stroking, kissing, and hugging were reported most often in relationships with partners and children. Although friends were often hugged and embraced, they were rather seldom stroked or kissed. Simply speaking, diverse and intimate touch seems to be universally more important in the closest personal relationships. To grasp the touch diversity for each individual, we counted how many touch types every person used. No touch at all, 1, 2, 3, or 4 types of affectionate touch. We averaged the responses within cultures and countries so that we could make a statement about whole groups, not just the individual people. People use more types of affectionate touch in warmer, less conservative, and less religious countries, and among younger, female, and liberal people. And there's more, but I'm just giving you a piece of that. And then this is from Rebecca Mkola, RebekkaMkkola.com, on touch in different cultures. And Dr. Tiffany Field notes that the Ebers Papyrus, dated to 1553 BC, quote, showed the early practice of healing by touch. In 400 BC, hand healers in Greece were called chirurgos, which is the origin of the word surgeon. Meanwhile, in Rome, Galen was a famous healer who used massage as a form of treatment. Even the Bible shows the laying on of hands as a way of healing those with a range of conditions and diseases. Dr. Field writes that many cultures today still understand the importance of touch, and some cultures live skin to skin, starting early on by passing their babies from person to person, regardless of their age. Higher contact cultures, never heard that expression, stand closer to each other, make more eye contact, speak louder, and incorporate touch more frequently. Examples of these include those from the Middle East, Latin America, and Southern Europe. And more on that from them, if you're interested. But we'll go on. A poem from London, November 2000. Embracing you along the Thames. Embracing you along the Thames, below the Harrod green and gold-tipped spires of Hammersmith Bridge, above the soft and slow-moving river reflecting constable clouds and the breasts of geese and small gulls floating and fishing. Embracing you along the Thames, your warm cheek meeting mine, my eyes on your black curls, soaked with English sun, for a still moment of sweetness where we have paused inside the flow of time, where we have stopped to embrace along the Thames. Here's something from the Atlantic I thought we'd find interesting. No touching. The countries that dislike physical contact the most. A study suggests you should hug a Finn, but not a Brit. Do you greet a stranger by kissing them on the cheek or giving them a firm handshake? In the largest study ever quantifying where people were comfortable being touched and by whom, 1,300 men and women were asked the same question. The results suggest that when greeting most people, you're better off with a handshake. The participants from Finland, France, Italy, Russia, and the UK detailed where strangers, family members, friends, and romantic partners were allowed to touch them. The results from the University of Oxford and Finland's Aalto University combined the results to create a so-called, quote, heat map. For almost everyone, the hands are okay. Unsurprisingly, no one wanted relatives of either gender to touch their genitals. And regardless of nationality, researchers found that the closeness of the relationship correlated with the range of areas that can be touched. But there were unexpected results. We were a bit surprised at how reluctant men were to be touched compared to women. The heat map showed they weren't even comfortable with other male strangers touching the back of their heads. It was a taboo zone. This study, published in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, highlighted the importance of touch in communicating positive emotions. Humans are quite similar to monkeys and apes in that respect, with touch being crucial in establishing and maintaining social bonds. True to their stereotype, British participants were right at the bottom on the touchability index. Well, if you're British, is that true? And if you know any Brits, is that true of your experience with them? And to the researchers' surprise, Italians were less comfortable with being touched than Russians. We hadn't expected the Finns to turn out to be the most cuddly people, Dunbar said, or that the Italians are almost as uncuddly as the Brits. Well, that was not my experience among the Italians I was with. It was the opposite, but who knew? Who knew? I had to tell you that. And then, of course, this is from mindandbody.com, why physical touch matters for your well-being. So we go back to a little more from, again, Dr. Tiffany Field, who appears here, head of the Touch Research Institute at the University of Miami's Miller School of Medicine. Okay. They ask her a couple of questions. What have been the most surprising findings from your research? And she said, we found that massage actually increases natural killer cells. They kill viral cells, bacteria cells, and more, she says. What kind of lessons can we take from your studies from a parenting perspective? I think parents need to be touching their kids as much as they can because kids aren't getting it at school. And when they're with their peers, they're also on their phones. I think certainly kids today are much more touch deprived than they were before smartphones. So I think parents have to make a special effort to provide as much touch as they can. Are there ways we should be encouraging more touch in our society? She said, I think we need to have more touch in the school system. I know private schools, they're allowed to touch kids, but in a lot of public schools, there's a mandate against touching, and I think that has to change. It's only going to change if parent-teacher associations are encouraging teachers to touch the kids. I'd say we have kids giving each other back rubs. That's happening in Europe and preschools. Kids are taught that. So there you have that. And I say, what about a school of touch or a curriculum? What would your ideas be? What would your remedies be to this issue, this touch deprivation? Okay, from the Mayan coast of Mexico, massage. Oiled brown hands knead your white flesh as the sun bathes the terrace and the palm leaves rub their dry hips and slender fingertips together. Massage. From healthline.com, what does it mean to be touch-starved? We heard that line earlier. Humans are wired to be touched. From birth until the day we die, our need for physical contact remains. Being touch-starved, also known as skin hunger or touch deprivation, occurs when a person experiences little to no touch from other living things. Indeed, the condition seems to be more common in countries that are becoming increasingly touch-averse. But research from 2014 has found that missing out on regular human touch can have some serious and long-lasting effects. Does it only apply to sensual touch? Definitely not. and any and all positive touch is considered beneficial. How do you know? I'm skipping through just because it's longer piece, but I'm skipping through. How do you know if you're touch-starved? Symptoms may be combined with feelings of depression, anxiety, stress, low relationship satisfaction, difficulty sleeping, a tendency to avoid secure attachments. You may also subconsciously do things to simulate touch, such as taking long hot baths or showers, wrapping up in blankets, and even holding on to a pet. So, things to think about. I was musing on the frequent touch people give to their dogs or cats, some people rabbits, and other pets, and I came across this poem by Robert Wrigley, W-R-I-G-L-E-Y, Kissing a Horse. Of the two spoiled, barn-sour geldings we owned that year, it was Red, skittish and prone to explode even at 14 years, who'd let me hold to my face his own, the massive labyrinthine caverns of the nostrils, the broad plane up the head to the eyes. He'd let me stroke his coarse chin whiskers and take his soft, meaty underlip in my hands, press my man's carnivorous kiss to his grass-nipping upper half of one, just so that I could smell the long way his breath had come from the rain and the sun, the lungs and the heart, from a world that meant no harm. Thank you, Robert Wrigley. Kissing a Horse. That was reprinted from Early Earthly Meditations, new and selected poems of his. Well, what about those creatures we hear of or encounter ourselves that are wildly tactile, like the octopus, or here, the starfish? This is from the South Fork of Long Island, July 2002. The starfish. A single starfish, pink eye open, washed from the sky of the sea onto the sand, all mauve and cream, returned now by hand, stretching its nubbly star fingers at the first feel of the cool, green, flowing ocean. It's a touchstone for me back to that moment. Every single time I remember exactly that, finding that and returning that starfish. Well, how the wonderful experiences of nature can come through touch and through the feet. This was hiking through East Brother Island, the inside passage of southeast Alaska, back in July of 2009 when I was on a floating wilderness journey on a 40-foot halibut fishing boat. We weren't doing fishing, of course, but we were on one of those, the Sue Ann, with the captain and one other friend of mine that came along for the adventure. We stepped onto that island and we soon came upon this. Moss dancing. We used the moss as stepping stones in the old-growth forest, then bare our feet to slow dance with more feeling on the yielding green cushions, pillows, and mattresses that caress our souls with silently primal softness, coolness. Moss dancing. From the Masseria il Frantoio near Ostuni in Puglia in Italy, January 2006. The mise en scène at the Masseria. Late at night, a late December night, I walk barefoot outside over rain-graced marble, my feet like fingers feeling the coolness, soles finding the smoothness, and the softness of 400 years of harvests and history, rain and sun. I savor the wildness of the wind and the olive and myrtle trees in the old Masseria, sleeping here in the green heart of Puglia. Touching the earth, that's a theme. I love to touch the earth with my bare feet. How about you? It's also wonderful grounding to do that. This was on the cracked trail to Killarney Ridge on the Northern Ontario Shield of Canada, August 2012. This is climbing Killarney Ridge. Poem is Ascending. Eyes, hands, and feet feel the way for my whole body to climb the steep jigsaw of boulders tumbled out of time. See their play of light and line, color and mass. Touch and hold their smoothness, roughness, coolness, heat. Find on them, in them, each new footing to stretch to or spring from. As I ascend, thinking of that elemental, primal feeling of having your hands in the earth, not just your feet, but your hands in the fertile, giving, living soil. This is the man with the greening hands. Everything he turns them to sprouts, buds, blossoms. The man with the tenderly nurturing, enlivening hands, springing hands. The man with the verdant garden singing fingers and palms. That man with such freshly feeling, evergreening hands. Maybe you have hands like those. Maybe you're a gardener or lover of gardening. Also have greening hands. Let me know if you do. Write me a note. And how often have you gone naked and let everything freely and fully touch you, from the sun to the air, maybe the sand, maybe the sea? It's a poem from August of 2021. The Nakedarian has no desire for clothes, only a desire for their body to fully feel all the light and air, moisture, texture, touching every inch, curve, crest, soft fold of their bare skin. Only a desire to swim freely through their days and nights in sweet and salty sensuality, in unshyly naked felicity. Those times, friends, and moments we are or have been quietly skin to skin, nestling with a partner, a lover. This is from Berlin, March 2015. Tenderland. Early morning, our hands clasped, lying chest to back behind you. I feel the pulse between our fingers, unsure and unconcerned whose heart is beating. Julie Suk, S-U-K. Loving the hands. I could make a wardrobe with tufts of wool caught on thistle and bracken. Lost the scraps I might have woven whole cloth. Come watch, the man says, shearing sheep with the precision of long practice, fleece removed all of a piece rolled in a neat bundle. I've been so clumsy with people who've loved me. Straddling a ewe, the man props its head on his foot, leans down with clippers, each pass across the coat a caress. His dogs, lying nearby, tremble at every move, as I do, loving the hands that have learned to gentle the life beneath them. Beautiful. Thank you, Julie Suk. New to me, that poem. Anne Sexton, I haven't read one of hers in quite some time, I think, on the shows, maybe once. But I found one that fit our theme. The Touch by Anne Sexton. For months my hand was sealed off in a tin box. Nothing was there but the subway railings. Perhaps it is bruised, I thought, and that is why they have locked it up. You could tell time by this, I thought, like a clock, by its 5 knuckles and the thin underground veins. It lay there like an unconscious woman fed by tubes she knew not of. The hand had collapsed, a small wood pigeon that had gone into seclusion. I turned it over, and the palm was old, its lines traced like fine needlepoint and stitched up into fingers. It was fat and soft and blind in places, nothing but vulnerable. And all this is metaphor. An ordinary hand, just lonely for something to touch that touches back. The dog won't do it. Her tail wags in the swamp for a frog. I'm no better than a case of dog food. She owns her own hunger. My sisters won't do it. They live in school except for buttons and tears running down like lemonade. My father won't do it. He comes in the house, and even at night he lives in a machine made by my mother and well-oiled by his job. The trouble is that I'd let my gestures freeze. The trouble was not in the kitchen or the tulips, but only in my head. Then all this became history. Your hand found mine. Life rushed to my fingers like a blood clot. Oh, my carpenter, the fingers are rebuilt. They dance with yours. They dance in the attic and in Vienna. My hand is alive all over America. Not even death will stop it, death shedding her blood. Nothing will stop it, for this is the kingdom and the kingdom come. The touch by Anne Sexton, thank you. One of mine from the East End of Long Island, summer of 2012, painting you. With periwinkle on the tips of my fingers, you lie back on a bed of summer. Then gently bring my hand to your sun-warm breast, where I begin to paint you in all your colors. Find a palette for your body's purest pleasures, pale periwinkle for your nipples, Naples yellow for the yielding nape of your neck and gracing shoulders, water violet for your half-open lips, rose madder for your parting thighs, leaving your umber fields of freckles and the southern light flowing through your torso, eyes, and limbs, free to complete the picture. And here's one I liked from Wyatt Townley. First kiss. Here you are 40 years later in a white coat examining my ears. All I can think is how your tongue once turned in the tunnel you're peering into. The fault is not in my ears, but between them. No one can see that far, but could we gaze back through the years and dead stars to the doorstep of my parents' house, you bending down with your tall mouth to make the softest landing on mine? Having thrown off my balance so tenderly, can you explain, good doctor, how to regain it? First kiss. Thank you, Wyatt Townley, for rewriting the body, his collection. There is a very amusing, speaking of kisses, a very amusing 1930s guide that I found from The Art of Manliness on how to spice up your smooching, sessions. So there are a couple of excerpts from The Art of Kissing by Pietro Ramirez. That's the original author's name, a funny little book first published in 1938. He begins by instructing readers on how to perform the basic lip kiss and a section on how to kiss girls with different sizes of mouths, as well as the, quote, French soul kiss, then suggests that readers expand their kissing repertoire as variation kisses are the spice of love, quote. Anyway, he had a couple of corkers here. The vacuum kiss. You start off by opening your mouth a trifle just after you've been resting peacefully with closed lips. Indicate to your partner by brushing your teeth with the tip of your tongue that you wish for her to do likewise. The moment she responds, instead of caressing your mouth, suck inward as though you were trying to draw out the innards of an orange. If she knows of this kiss variation, your maid will act in the same way and withdraw the air from your mouth. In this fashion, in a very short while, the air will have been entirely drawn out of your mouths. Your lips will adhere so tightly that there will almost be pain instead of pleasure, but it will be the sort of pain that is highly pleasurable. This may sound odd, but nevertheless, it is a fact. Pain becomes so excruciating as to become pleasure. Well, if you try this one out, I don't know. I can't be responsible for what happens, or he or him. Do it in the safety of your own home. The eyelash kiss, well, those are butterfly kisses. Lowering your eyelashes and enmeshing them or brushing the cheek with them. That's a very sweet. I always think of little kids, and I've done that with little ones. Give them a little eyelash kiss on the cheek. The dancing kiss, where here again it says it is the closeness of the bodies that adds to the enjoyment. What more could a pair of lovers ask for than a dimly lighted dance floor, the tender rhythmical strains of a waltz being played by Wayne King, their arms around each other, their eager young bodies kissing each other in a myriad of excitable places, the while their cheeks meet in glowing, velvety strokes. Well, I would agree with that. I was talking about that earlier. And then the surprise kiss. And there's more, but I'm just going to end with that for the moment. A most charming manner of kissing is called the surprise kiss, performed when one of the parties has fallen asleep on the sofa, let us say. On entering the room, when the other sees his lover asleep, he should tiptoe softly over to her. Then, lowering his head slowly, he should implant a soft, downy, feathery kiss squarely on her lips. So there you have it. You can look that up somewhere, The Art of Kissing. Well, I want to keep us in time, and I'm going to have many, many more things to share, but some. But there's a poem that I'm pointing you to. I like it. It's I've read it once before. David Wagoner's poem, "The Best Slow Dancer," from his collection Traveling Light. You can find that at poetryfoundation.org. But I do want to come to some other things, including Jane Brunette's from flameseed.com. Imagine that everything desires you. All the words, these words are written by her. So here they are. Instead of being the one who does the desiring, imagine instead that everything desires you. Your morning coffee really wants you to taste it. The trees are yearning for you to notice the bright green of their leaves. The breeze wants you to enjoy its soft touch on your cheek. Even the ground under your shoes is waiting for you to notice the lively sensation it creates as you walk. Suddenly the world lights up, and so do you. When we feel wanted, it's natural to feel enlivened in response. Our desire takes its rightful place as the fire of presence and enjoyment of what is instead of the burning need to get what's not here. Doing this practice will derive satisfaction from a whole variety of ordinary things we normally overlook, since our attention won't be occupied with waiting for a specific object to please us. There's no need to wait, because everything we encounter has satisfaction built into it. With desire spread out all over the world, its enlivening quality is no longer confined to one object that we may or may not get. This little game can trick you into mindful presence, even as it helps wear down your usual relationship to desire. It's a simple, playful way to meditate as you go about your daily life. Try it for short little bursts, and rather than thinking of it as a task, let the enjoyment that comes be the fuel that naturally makes you want to do it more and more. Jane Brunette. Thank you. Thank you for that. I was talking with a friend of mine, a mother of 2 sons, now finally grown, about this broadcast. And as I was putting it together, she said, what about the way a child in utero is touching itself in that small space as it grows, and its mother from the inside out with its limbs? The way we each did in utero, and a mother and others could lay a hand on her belly. I've done that, and touch and feel the small kicker push from the outside in. How increasingly along the pregnancy, especially 4 months prior, there's a continuous contact between the two. And then how the newborn emerges and gets its first full-body massage, in a way, coming through the birth canal into the world. I liked hearing that idea. Yes. Okay. Donald Hall has this poem, Gold. Pale gold of the walls. Gold of the centers of daisies, yellow roses pressing from a clear bowl. All day we lay on the bed, my hand stroking the deep gold of your thighs and your back. We slept and woke, entering the golden room together, lay down in it, breathing quickly, then slowly again, caressing and dozing, your hand sleepily touching my hair now. We made in those days tiny identical rooms inside our bodies, which the men who uncover our graves will find in 1,000 years, shining and whole. Beautiful. Thank you, Donald Hall. It was new to me also. Love that. All right. Now into our last sharings and musings for this week and our chosen theme. This is a Russian poet from her poem from 1917. Marina Tsvetaeva, A Kiss on the Forehead. Translated from by Ilya Kaminsky and Jean Valentine. A kiss on the forehead erases misery. I kiss your forehead. A kiss on the eyes lifts sleeplessness. I kiss your eyes. A kiss on the lips is a drink of water. I kiss your lips. A kiss on the forehead erases memory. Thank you, Marina Tsvetaeva. Well, there's one I wanted to, let me see if we have time to read this. Next one, maybe close, but you know what? I don't think so. This is Celebrating Childhood by the poet Adonis, Adonis, translated by Khaled Matawa. You find that at poetryfoundation.org. Yeah, I'm going to save that. From Sea Point Beach, Kittery, Maine, summer 2017. Kissed. Every inch of my skin kissed. By ocean mist, breathing, lipping over my bared body. On a sea-salted shore, far from everywhere but here. From the island of Bonaire in the Dutch Antilles, April 2013. Hands. The soles of our hands touch. The souls in our hands touch. A century after Walt Whitman declaimed in Leaves of Grass that, quote, the body includes and is the meaning, the main concern, and includes and is the soul, composed his reverent catalog of body parts: head, neck, hair, ears, drop, and tympan of the ears, mouth, tongue, lips, teeth, strong shoulders, bowels, sweet and clean, brain in its folds inside the skull frame, heart valves. The writer, Toni Morrison, writes this: love your hands, love them, raise them up and kiss them. Touch others with them, pat them together, stroke them on your face. Love your mouth. This is flesh that needs to be loved. Feet that need to rest and to dance, backs that need support, shoulders that need arms, strong arms. Love your neck. Put a hand on it, grace it, stroke it, and hold it up. And all your inside parts that they'd just as soon slop for hogs, you got to love them. The dark, dark liver, love it, and the beat and beating heart, love that too. More than eyes or feet, more than lungs that have yet to draw free air, more than your life-holding womb and your life-giving private parts, love your heart, for this is the prize. Well, let's follow her advice, friends, shall we? I've been and will continue. Love your hands to your heart, everything in between. And last for now, this is from Till We're Together Again, of course, here. This is from Rockland Harbor, Maine, October 2017. I bless this body while the town sleeps and dreams behind me, and pined islands lay silently, invisibly off the salt-tongued shore. I rise, bare-bodied, from my warm bed out into the cool falling rain, to bless this being of flesh and bone, heart and soul, to feel the wildness of nature. Let the blissful, sensual world touch my willing skin, bathe my upraised face, fill my upturned palms. Let the elements of this pure living place anoint me on this pouring autumn night. And may you bless your body, all of your bodies out there, and all the beautiful experiences and feelings it has had and can have, and through touch and touching not least. And I thank you again, friends, for leaning in, for thinking and feeling in, touching in. Thanks also for sharing the shows with others. Freely post the program link or the whole playlist out to your friends or your social media. I'm always keen for us to bring more listeners into the fold. I invite you to send me any comments, questions, or reflections, and any donations that you might like to make to help support the work I'm doing every week to bring this and all the broadcasts to you and to others to nourish your and other minds, hearts, spirits. If there's anything you'd like me to craft a future show around, do send along an email, colin@thepoetorialist.com. And what about your experience of this show on touching and being touched? I'd like to hear. And if you are making a contribution, thank you very much. It does make a difference. You can send it by Venmo to fivefold, FIVEFOLD, at pipeline.com, or to PayPal to the same email. You can also just mail a check to me at P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island 02891, or donate through my site, thepoetorialist.com, at the Donate tab. And yes, I can be sponsored or privately hosted at times as a working poet in residence in the U.S. or elsewhere to create a new flight of poetic art and dedicate it to a patron or sponsor. If that's you, email me to explore. Meanwhile, you can hear all the broadcasts online, on YouTube, on the Floating Poetry playlist. And if you're interested, you can follow the Poetosphere, the oasis of inspiration I'm guiding that's coming to the world this summer. Go to thepoetosphere.com for a sense of what's ahead and sign up for updates. Meanwhile, I hope you lean in soon again. Until then, dear listeners, give the rare gift of touch to others whenever you can. From a hand on a cheek, or an arm around a shoulder, or laced in another's arm, to a stroke of the hair, or a kiss on the cheek, or a warm, enfolding embrace. Touch nature with your skin, with your bare hands, palms, fingers, your bare feet. Parts of your body, your beautiful, sensual nature meet each other's flowing energies. Let the sun, the wind, and the rain caress you. And open yourself to being gladly, nourishingly touched by others, to experiencing all the good feelings it brings, it fills you with, in those moments and long after. Yes. Yes, indeed. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.